Good evening, and thank you to another episode. Rather, thank you and welcome to another episode of No Frequency. I am your host for the evening, Bill Bulk, aka The Business, filling in once again for Dominic Wanzer as the pro host and producer of this show. He would be here, but he's currently in line at a hostess outlet, picking up the last boxes of ding dongs and ho hos that he can get his hands on. My understanding is they remind him of his childhood, stolen from him by a woman twice his age. Poor guy. So, good luck, Don. Don't get run down on your way to the hostess. And if you can grab me a box of Twinkies on your way, be much appreciated. So, as always, I'm going to dive right in with a solid reading of the station disclaimer, one of my personal favorites. So prepare yourselves as I shall prepare myself. Okay, let me just tuck my wire out of the way here so I can get in close to the little. You think I'd have it memorized by now, but it's not in my interest. What? What is going on here? So much happening. Oh my god. Excellent. Man, I hope I can live up to that opening music. It's pretty intense. I'm a little flustered, if you can't tell. Okay, disclaimer time. Welcome to No Frequency. My name is Bilbo, and I'm the producer of this show. The things you will hear over the next 50 minutes represent the views of No Frequency and the people making them. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. Alright, now that we've said that, we can say all kinds of terrible things. And don't worry, I'll get back to that hostess garbage pretty shortly. But we're going to start with one of my favorite things, something that I hold near and dear to my heart, something that is important to me, and that is the sex life of the CIA director of the United States of America. So I made a promise on my Facebook page, which we'll also get to later, that I would take some time. Can you hear all this rattle? It's me. I have thousands of papers. It's my own private library of super secret files and things. David Petraeus. I actually invited him to be on the show, and he declined, probably in his best interest, what with my propensity for saying horrifying things without thinking about them. David Petraeus, director of the CIA. Used to be a general, now he's just a mister. His mistake, there goes his pension. He went ahead and had an affair with a woman 20 years younger. So good for him. Good on him. Good for her. She won a general. That's real life. It's a pretty solid step up from, her co-workers at wherever it's not even important where she works. Who gives a crap? Right now, she's just a means to an end. Even though she was, of course, a 3-time guest of the White House. So don't let them pretend they don't know who she is. I'm looking here. I got all these papers for anyone watching on the video. You can see shuffling along. My little handwritten notes in my special shorthand that I use that no one can read, myself included. Do I sound really moist? I feel like I sound really moist. That's intentional. I need a little more water. I had a granola bar on my way over, and I think it's just producing saliva in anticipation of another one. It was delicious. I don't remember the brand name, or I'd tell you, so you could try it yourself, but it had cranberries. Oh, cranberries. Alright. It doesn't make me any less moist, but it makes me wet. What a beautiful word moist is. So, General, I apologize, ex-General David Petraeus, one of the most honorable and most decorated men in America, in one of the most important positions in America outside of the White House. And in some ways, he's inside the White House, being the director of the CIA. He had an affair with his biographer, a young woman who, by the name of Jill Kelly, I think it was. It's not terribly important. Again, she's just some woman they're using to smash Petraeus before he comes out and admits all the truth. I think someone's breaking into my car. I should probably set my alarm. I got so excited coming in here a few minutes early, I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing. Oh, that was my car locking. Alright. I swear I'm going to get to this. In the 21st century, you have to consider nowadays the world we're living in. The American people are incredibly forgiving of transgressions from our higher-ups, as it were. Although, and I never hesitate to point this out, I'm going to point it out again, our employees, ultimately. Sorry about that, I was throwing up a little bit in my mouth. We walk around, and, when you think back on things like the Bill Kelly, that's not even a person, Bill Clinton affair, you get angry, and you get disgusted, and then you move on with the business of having a country around you. It's not generally a career ender, but with Petraeus, he chose to step down. He didn't betray his country, he betrayed his wife, who, again, if you're near a computer, go to Google and type in David Petraeus' wife. Petraeus is Petraeus, and then tell me you blame him 100% for having an affair. But that's not even shallow, that's just a bare fact. She's like a man. It's terrifying. But you look past the misdeed. You go beyond the label of betrayer. Especially, it's a familial betrayal, not a national betrayal. And you wonder why he would go to all the trouble of resigning his position, his commission, his title, all of that. Now, there's a few reasons that I can think of. There's some that have been written about. I'm sure there's more that'll be written about. I mean, this is just taking off. Shockingly, it's actually usurping the Benghazi affair, which is funny because Petraeus is right down in the middle of that. The director of the CIA having an affair steps down, and it goes a lot of his stepping down comes directly to the man himself. He's an honorable man. He's a 4-star general. He's the director of the CIA. He's worked in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, all over the world on behalf of the American people and the American ideal. He's not just some guy who worked his way into the position, said he could hang a title on his wall. He's a man who actually tried very hard to get where he is and then got there. It's in some ways an American tale. So when this came to bear, he did what ultimately is the right thing, and he stepped down. He got out of the way of his own transgressions, and said, "There's more at stake here than just me and my own wants and needs." Secondary to that, and in some cases primary, if you look at it from the perspective of national security, is any kind of betrayal opens the door for not necessarily blackmail, but compromise. His position could be compromised. Let's say he was trying to hide this. And again, this is the director of the CIA, so if anyone can hide something, one would imagine he's the one. That he didn't is kind of a sad state of affairs, but if he's compromised in any way, if it comes out, if people can use it to leverage him for information, whether on American movements, all the different pots and pans that he had his fingers and spoons in, no pun intended, That's a huge risk to America, and a huge risk to each and every one of us, ultimately. Especially when you consider the CIA being a national, or rather international organization, as opposed to the FBI, which is a bunch of pencil pushers who look for affairs. So you have to take that into account. And it happened so quickly. And then you also have to wonder if he stepped down so that it couldn't be held against him after the Benghazi attacks. He's saying now, I wouldn't say he's not saying it now after the fact. He's saying it now in reference to the fact that within hours of when he found out about Benghazi, he was saying that it was Al-Qaeda, that it was linked to Al-Qaeda, that it was a terrorist attack, and that no one was listening to him. Now, he claims in his initial report that he declared there was an Al-Qaeda involvement. It was stripped from the agency's original talking points. Apparently no one knows who changed the memo, so that tells us, in retrospect, that they're looking for someone to hang this on. I'm guessing originally it was going to be Petraeus, but now they have nothing on him, showcasing exactly how having an affair can be used as a wedge against your own self-interest. So now he can go about where he wants, saying how he wants. And he was there, whether he's still director of the CIA or not. He was privy to that information. That's something they can't take away from him. Well, the best they can do is gag him, and that won't last if he chooses not to. And I'm going to quote directly from a piece here written by Joseph Curl in the Washington Times. It makes a really great point. I'm just going to quote it directly here. Again, this is Joseph Curl. And quoting, "Me, I think Mr. Obama and his minions put the screws to Mr. Petraeus. What? Apparently I lost a page somewhere in here, so we'll just ... Petraeus has had an affair, and he chooses to suffer the slings and arrows for that, but he will not take the fall for Benghazi." Again quoting, "In fact, I think months ago someone very high up in the administration, likely with top approval," now that's with a wink and a nod to the presidency, "ordered the FBI to investigate the CIA director." Shades of Nixon here. Editor's note. "The two agencies have quietly been at war for decades, and Mr. Obama didn't really trust Mr. Petraeus, a holdover appointee from the Bush administration. Get a little dirt on the director, just in case he ever appears ready to leave the reservation. Friday's testimony changed everything. Out there now is that the director of the CIA told whoever would listen that there was Al-Qaeda involvement in that September 11th attack. Note again, September 11th, the Benghazi attacks. Who knows what Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton will tell the House next month, now that she's done with her wine tastings in Australia." So I think Mr. Curl's, although the stench of conspiracy does linger upon that platter of verbiage, he's not, for looking from the outside in, he's not entirely wrong. It's not a ridiculous statement to make. It is a little out there, but it's not. This isn't second shooter on the grassy knoll out there. This isn't lizard people running the world out there. This is O.J. Simpson's glove out there, So take that for what it's worth. But do keep an eye on the news, because again, as I said on my Facebook page, and as I'll say here out loud, now that the election is over, the real fun begins, because we've got a president who's in his final term, can't run again. The media, although the love affair continues, is slowly becoming more self-aware of their absolute ineptitude when exploring the history that is Obama. It should be a real great time when all of these different parts and pieces come together, when all the different affairs and scandals and broken promises and horrible calls, which befall any president, not just this one in particular. I don't want to go out there and say that this is a unique experience. This is universal of any president, and indeed any head of state. But in the last 4 years, we have strayed from the normal digging dirt and slinging mud to frills up our legs and fancy creases in our pants. So, prepare, because it's going to be fun. I'm going to go out on a limb here and make the prediction that in 12 to 18 months we're going to have a White House level affair. I don't want to say affair, I don't mean of a sexual nature. I mean affair of a grand and horrifying fiasco. So, now that I have completely beaten that horse with this fancy stick I call an English degree, let's be terrified about what the FBI can do when they're doing that to the CIA director. What can they do to us, just the people sitting on the sidelines? But I don't really want to go that far. I was intending to read some stuff here. I was going to get political. Let me tell you my thought process on today's show. Let me clue you in. Let me open the door to the little piecemeal creation that this show is in my head. I always start with the best of intentions, approximately the Wednesday before the show, thinking about what I want to say and how I want to be clever and what funny thing I can do. That's Wednesday. Thursday, inevitably, something's brewing in the news, because Fridays are great days for news because it's the weekend and everyone forgets by Monday. So I'm preparing for whatever junk is going to come flying at me on Friday. Friday comes and the news breaks, and I get angry about whatever it is. Whether it's something political in Washington, something political in Wisconsin, something local to Milwaukee. Sometimes even so small as things in my aldermanic district. I could do without our alderman, but I guess the people who don't live in his district love him, and anyone who doesn't run a business in his district is happy with him. It's unfortunate for them. They should try working underneath his iron-fisted rule. But nonetheless, it's an insurrection, and we're an army of one. So that's where Friday goes. And Saturday and Sunday, Saturday I tend to sleep late and spend the day with a headache, so I don't really do too much. Sunday I start piecing things together how I want it to go. And I sit down with a little piece of paper, like a 4x8 piece of paper. And I list things, and I write them, all the way down to, in the very first portion of the page, I'll write, introduce yourself, read the disclaimer, make a comment about Dominic and what he's up to while he's not here. Because I want to make sure that I'm generally in line with a consistent show. Like today, I'm saying a lot. Which is terrible. I'm hearing myself say it, and I feel like I'm an amateur. So then those things, I write them all down, and then I go and find pieces of it. I print off things from the internet, in the news. I grab articles from the paper. I write little notes to myself, again, in my little fancy handwriting. If I have something I want to reference, I'll get a copy of it, like the Constitution. Email letters that I get, all kinds of things. So I have all this pile of stuff. And then I go through in the evening, Sunday usually, and I pare it down. And then Monday, today, I'll work till about 2, get in as much actual job as I can, and then I just kind of bum for a couple hours and run over the whole show in my head. And then here we are. I end up here, pick a piece of duty-free music, whatever they call it, licensing-free. Let's just say I'm not going to get sued by ASCAP. So this week, a lot was going on. I had a wedding to go to. There's this whole church thing today that I had to get into, which is actually really cool, and I'll touch on that in a moment. Then this hostess thing broke, and that's very exciting for me because I'm in that industry. Like that's a close to home, nationwide thing that I can speak to from the street. But I did, and I mentioned the U.S. Constitution, mentioning that because I'm still upset about the whole Obamacare thing, the Affordable Patient Protection Care Act. The intentions are great. The behemoth and horrifying solution they came up with is probably one of the worst things that's going to happen in our generation. It's onerous. It's incredibly expensive. It doesn't fix the problems it intended to fix. and it spent more dollars protecting itself than it did protecting the people it was designed for. So that the very nature of that is against mine. I wholeheartedly believe, and even in my personal life, it's our job, my job, to protect those who can't protect themselves. That's how you live your life right, in my book. That's how you make it to heaven. In quotes, heaven with a little h. But I printed off Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, and I intended to read it. And it's not very long, probably a couple hundred words, if that. And who doesn't want to listen to my voice? Just go on about the credit of the United States and regulating commerce and rules for naturalization. But I'm not entirely going to go into tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Like, it's all very exciting. And again, I can feel myself getting excited. But I've decided not to do that. What I'm going to do is instead parse it, carve it down, create the point that I want, use zero facts to back it up, and demand you accept my opinion. So, it's like talk radio. Crazy. So here's what I'm doing. I'm sitting there being angry about Obamacare. And I like using the term Obamacare because you really need to hang that albatross around his neck. Be just as good calling it Pelosi care, but it's kind of cumbersome. And Obamagate. I mean, we're still waiting for that to happen. Like I said, 16, 18 months, we'll get an Obamagate. But nonetheless, again, losing the thrust here. The Affordable Care Act. Now, no matter where you fall on it, and I mean that, no matter where you fall on it, if you're pro or against, or if you're neutral, really wherever you stand, you have to accept the very basic premise that as laid out in our Constitution, the very idea of the Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional. Now that's going to be argued probably for the next 15 years. When you look straight at the letter of the law, strip it of politics, strip it of any intention, it's against the law. It is against the Constitution, which, of course, the president has been sworn to uphold. There's very few things that Congress has been granted as that Congress was granted by the Constitution. Sorry, there was a fascinating bunch of craziness happening outside right then. And nowhere in there does it say anything about maintaining the health and wealth of the people. There's nothing even close to giving them that authority. They're given the authority to create laws. They've been given the power to call militias, to regulate land and naval forces, armies, war, reprisal, captures, tribunals again. Such a great word, tribunal. It's got a bit of that in it. Tribunal. You feel that? Go ahead and say it. I'll give you a second. You just say tribunal to yourself. Felt good, right? You like that? Me too. You sounded great. And, coin, all those things. But nowhere in there does it say anything about protecting my, keeping me from getting a headache. It's just ridiculous. That's, at the very least, if you agree that it should be a practice, that at the very least is a power granted to the states. At the very worst, of course, it is completely anathema. It's a Jeffersonian takeover, which nobody wants. We're against that. Here at No Frequency, when there's no one else around. It's just us. So that was where I was going to go with that. But again, I decided that everyone would be bored with that. Nobody wants someone just reading the Constitution in their ear, even though I do feel like when you're 18 years old, as a male, you are required to sign up for the selective service. So you can be drafted in case of horrifying world war. Would be the only reason they would draft right now. And even then, I don't know that they would institute a draft because there's too many people with too much money. There's a lot going on outside here. But beyond that, when you do that, when you send in your selective service registration, I think it would be to everyone's benefit if they mailed you back a copy of the U.S. Constitution, annotated by a completely nonpartisan group of academics who have studied the thing, article by article. It's not like these things don't exist, and I'm sure in the future, heck, just email it to me. It's not really a big deal. But, I think we would do better to have people understand the Constitution better than they understand how to build a website. But I guess priorities are priorities. So I've made a lot of promises during this show, saying that I was going to touch on some stuff and not others, and it's a very small person. And where I was going to offend people, and, I was going to get all crazy about burning the Koran and whatever was going to pop into my head. And instead, I'm going to touch on things that I love, things that are important to me. Because if they're important to me, they should be important to you. And I, of course, imagine that everyone is fascinated by my opinions on things. Because I can't see how you couldn't be. So, free speech. Exactly. Ow. Free speech is one of those things. I am absolutely a huge proponent of free speech. Now, I understand that there are practical limits to that. I run a business, so obviously I'm not going to stand out front and spit out whatever pops into my head. And I'm not going to go into a movie theater and scream fire. Again, those are common sense things. But when it comes down to straightforward free speech, you have to question the thinking on college campuses. There's a phenomenal article in the Wall Street Journal on the 16th called How Free Speech Died on Campus. It's a young woman, Sohrab Ahmari. I'm going to spell that for you, but I'm going to mess it up the first time because there are a lot of letters in here that I'm not used to seeing together. So bear with me. Sohrab, Sohrab Ahmari, Ahmari. Sohrab Ahmari. Again, Wall Street Journal. There's actually this phenomenal... where was it? I saw this one. Oh, I gotta read this. Here it is. Okay, here's what happened. Was at Stanford. Right? No, I'm sorry. Fordham University. The president of the university, Joseph McShane, scolded college Republicans for the sin of inviting Ann Coulter to speak. Now, again, if you're politicizing that, saying it's Ann Coulter and throwing books across the room and getting very upset, that's not the point. This is not the point. It could be Noam Chomsky, for all I care. It's not important. Right? He gets very upset with the college Republicans for doing that. And they, like idiots, disinvited her. Which, I'm not even going to get into how angry I am about the very fact that they decided to fold under the pressure of a college president. It's not how it works on college campuses. We've all seen the movies. The presidents fold to the students, not the other way around. Who gave them that authority? It's just ridiculous. But Mr. McShane then praised the college Republicans for taking responsibility for their decisions and expressing their regrets sincerely and eloquently. What a load of trash. And here's where it gets amazing. Where's the guy's name? Greg Lukianoff. He's a 38-year-old Stanford law grad who fights for free speech on college campuses. This is this guy's job. Explains the Fordham Coulter affair as such, and I'm quoting Mr. Lukianoff. This was the longest, strongest condemnation of a speaker that I've ever seen in which a university president also tried to claim that he was defending freedom of speech. And then he points to what Mr. McShane, the president of Fordham, had said specifically. He vowed to hold out, I'm quoting here, hold out great contempt for anyone who would intentionally inflict pain on another human being because of their race, gender, sexual orientation, or creed. Now, he didn't block the speech directly, but he was so negative about the whole thing and so dismissive of the decision to have her. It's basically the same thing, and it's a caustic and yet sweet. It's like taking cyanide with honey. Doesn't really do a whole lot of good for either of them. But I'm getting angry. And then again, this small child is running in circles. It's very confusing. Oh, where were we? So now here's the thing, and I'm done with the article now. Now I'm going to wax prosaic about free speech here, because I've always been of a mind that we should ban censorship. So if anyone wants to put that on a t-shirt, go around with it. The protections afforded to free speech are not there so that we can say things that we like. I'm not saying things to you that you enjoy and then having my free speech defended. That's not how it works. Free speech and the ideas behind it and the rules and the laws and the defenders and the detractors, for that matter. Free speech is there to protect the speech you don't like. And again, there's a very simple way to deal with things you don't like, and that is to just walk away. You know, whether it be a speaker you don't want to listen to, a TV show that you don't like, a religion you don't happen to agree with, a sexual orientation you don't agree with. Just walk away. It doesn't affect your life until you accept it and make it a part of your life. So just the very idea that free speech, and again, this is 2012, I think. Pretty sure. Yeah, my phone says so. This is 2012. And we're still having arguments over free speech. There are still people who are invoking it. And that's not where I am in the America I imagined 25 years ago when I was a kid. When I was hanging. And even at that time, I was offensive. Hanging offensive posters on the walls. Cutting out offensive pictures from Paladin Press magazine catalog, I guess it would be. U.S. Cavalry's t-shirt pages. They're horrifying depictions of violence against pretty much anyone. There's no benefit to defending speech you agree with. All you're doing is accepting that you like something, which, again, nobody wants to hear. I don't care what you like. And I don't know if it's just because I have, a touch of Asperger's or what, but your opinions on things are, in almost all ways, the least important opinions I get in a day. And it's not because I don't respect you. It is because I respect myself more than you. It's that simple. And that might be hard for some people to hear, but it's not, that's not intended to be insulted. And I will invoke my right to free speech in saying it. But when I say things that offend you, your first option, should always be to walk away. There should never be a point where anyone, and when I say you now, I'm talking universally, should never be a point where your first reaction is to legislate against what I've said. It should always be to walk away. The idea to legislate in favor or against a particular type of speech, and again, I mean verbal speech, that shouldn't even be an option. That should be like a write-in in the Green Party. Like that's only in Colorado should that be an issue. And yet it comes up again and again. This isn't an occasional thing that we hear about. If it were, it would still bother me, but it wouldn't be such a thorn in my side. But it's become such a widespread constant. You can insult anyone on anything now. You can't call fat people fat. You can't call black people black. You can't call white people white. You can't call gay people gay. But make sure you do all of those things because that's also right. You can't invite certain speakers to your campus function. You can't have certain people speak at your political rally. You can't have a certain kind of whatever, wherever. I'm not even going to continue coming up with examples because I'm just going to devolve into semi-racist smatterings of distasteful discourse. But, like this idiot that shot up the Sikh temple. Right, that guy was an idiot. I'm not even gonna pretend to want to defend that idiot. And when I'm saying idiot, that is a euphemism for the back end of a dog, in the most vulgar terms possible. He was wrong. Now, there's a quote, and I think I actually heard it on Law and Order, if I remember correctly. My right to free speech ends just before my fist connects with your nose. And I wouldn't call that the greatest litmus test for free speech, because of course, how many fools will be out there throwing fists at one another and screaming free speech at the last second? But you got to take into account that there's always going to be someone who screws it up. But knowing that eventually they're going to screw it up shouldn't keep you from allowing everyone else to enjoy that freedom. You can't legislate against the end use of something by a different person. I guess that's kind of cumbersome. Let me unpack that for you. There's a documentary called Degenerate Art. You can watch it. It's on Netflix right now. You can see the trailer on YouTube. Degenerate Art. It's about glass pipe making. Like marijuana pipes, bongs, if you will. Because you have to, and this is almost business oriented in a way. You have to consider that in any given head shop, there's say 300 water pipes, bongs, bubblers, whatever you have, right? And they're made of glass. Those aren't made by machine. That's absurd to believe that. Those are made by artisans. They're actual people who sit there with a bar of glass or a rod of glass and a hot flame, and they blow those. Now, when you think about just a little spoon bowl, a little standard corncob pipe made out of glass, that's not so amazing. But some of these things, these water pipes, these bubblers, they're 4 feet tall and they have, 200 pounds of glass in them. They're twisted. They have gold and silver and diamonds, and they're cut and they're molded. It's amazing. I suggest seeing the whole thing. And they're illegal to make and sell on the internet, apparently. Or at least they were up until recently, I should say, 2010. Now, why? That's a good point was made in the documentary that they really are just pieces of art. A lot of the time, some of these larger, more elaborate pieces are they're art, beyond a doubt. It's a 6-foot-long snake made out of skeletons of glass. It's this huge thing. And then these guys go and stick a bowl in the end of it. That's kind of they turn it into a pipe because that's what they do. Now, that doesn't really help their cause any, but it does get it done. Word, son? Word. And so knowing that they're going to do that, they basically set themselves up to be legislated against. They're putting a bowl in the end of this artwork with the intent to make it smokable, as it were. Some of this stuff that they make, it has to be smoked to change color. It has to get hot, it has to get resoned. But they're not smoking the dope themselves. But the legislation, and this is 2003 when it all came to bear, had the stupidest name too. It was something like the Pied Piper Pokers. Some stupid alliteration thing. Like someone took a Creative 101 class and just never learned anything. Where they busted in on the 6 biggest guys in the industry who were online selling these things, millions of dollars, billions of dollars. Ultimately, we discovered through the documentary. Arrested because the end user of the products they were creating might use those for illegal means and purposes. Now, again, I just, how am I going to relate this? Bear with me, because I'm being attacked by horrifying walkers by. With free speech, is they're legislating against the artists who make the pipes because the last guy who's going to have it may
smoke pot out of it. I don't even know how that passes muster in any court of law. The idea is that I make the art, therefore I'm the criminal, even though the true crime is it has to be smoked out of, which requires someone to buy the pot, smoke the pot, be high on the pot, and have the pipe in their hand. Again, that's the end user needing to smoke pot out of it. Because smoking tobacco out of it is, of course, not illegal currently. We'll see how long that lasts. Probably the day they legalize marijuana nationwide, they'll outlaw pot, or rather nicotine. Neither here nor there, though. Okay. So, it's the same issue with free speech. If you legislate against what the worst is going to do, you've stolen the rights from the best and what they could do. You have to think about the great writers and the great thinkers. If they were backed into a corner and legislated against, and again, Socrates drank the poison, so don't think that it hasn't happened. But to define the limits that they can work within, with their thoughts and their words and their writings, because Hitler might speak. And again, that's not even a fair example, because in the time and place, Hitler was phenomenally popular in his own country. So it's all about context. You have to, in my opinion, you should never legislate. Speech is speech. If you don't like it, grow a set and leave. But if you're going to legislate after the fact, and for a particular instance, don't throw a blanket cause on the idea of my free speech. Because I've been watching a lot of movies. I got the Netflix account, so I watch the movies on the interwebs. And you watch some of these older films, these 80s films, the early 90s films. And although, of course, they're overdone and the hair is huge and the colors are bright, there were a lot more naked women, a lot more gun violence, a lot more distasteful good versus evil than you get nowadays. Nowadays, there's so much obfuscation over who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. Maybe they're all bad guys and we just have to root for the least bad guy. I mean, Liam Neeson, he's a jerk in Taken. He kills like 1,000 people in 14 minutes for no reason other than they took his daughter. Now I understand the father will do what he wants to do to save his daughter's life. But like, there's a limit to how many people you have to kill to save your daughter from a life of the sex trade. Realistically. But nonetheless, I watch these old movies and I wonder, like, where did all that go? Where did that black and white, that fun, what made it fun? I mean, Beverly Hills Cop. I don't think that could be made today. I don't think anyone would dare touch that. 48 Hours. I mean, Nick Nolte says some pretty horrifying things in retrospect in that movie. And again, in context at the time, it wasn't that bad. But now, because so many people's feelings would be hurt, we couldn't say those things. That doesn't make the movie any less valuable or any less funny. It just makes it less tasteful. Which, again, it's a buddy cop film. One of the first, in fact, with Eddie Murphy. So, when did we start reverting? When did we start losing that thrust of freedom? I don't. It all bothers me a lot. This is what I'm doing on the air now. I mean, this is an amazing freedom to have. Broadcasting, archiving for posterity. But how long will it last? I mean, who owns the internet? And that's, maybe we'll explore that subject next week. I guess we've only got a few moments left here, but, it's an interesting idea. I mean, with the free dissemination of information that we get, what governing body will attempt to insert itself to legislate that? But hopefully not before I get all my emails. So now we're going to talk about something completely different. We're going to talk about Twinkies. And we're going to hate on unions a little bit. See, I could say that because it's my right to say that. Hate on unions. Forget the unions. So stupid. Hostess is going out of business. That's a real thing. It's actually happening as we speak. So why? That's who killed the Twinkie? Now, do I think Twinkies are actually going to disappear completely? No, I don't. It's not. Anyone who does think that that's going to happen is woe to them for thinking poorly of the American business cycle. All these brands will be picked up by someone else and continued, possibly under different names, definitely under different brands. But there's 18,000 bakers out of jobs right now. And that's because they've gone out of business. Now, why did they go out of business? Because the union leaders wouldn't bend to the demands, as it were, of Hostess, who said we're going to be insolvent if we can't make these concessions. They said we won't make the concessions. And now Hostess, insolvent, folds and sells all of its brands, which, in case you're curious, the brands under Hostess include Twinkies, Cupcakes, Ding Dongs, Ho-Hos, Snowballs, Donuts, Drake's Cake, Dolly Madison brand. Bread brands also include Wonder, Nature's Pride, Marita, Home Pride, Butternut, and Millbrook. It's being wound down from my wholesaler. Got the email today. So we all have to work around that. We don't carry a lot of this stuff anyway, so... Now, here's the thing about it. It's 18,000 bakers are out of work. So they're not getting paid. But you know who is getting paid? And this is where I think a lot of my rage at unions comes from. Is the union guys. Because they get paid based on the dues of their members. And those dues far exceed the budget being used. So the money's still there for them to get paid. They'll get their yearly salary. Don't worry about the union guys. And although they're paid to put their members' interests first, they chose that when presented with two options, concede or lose all jobs. They chose lose all jobs. Now, forgive me if I think that is the wrong direction to go when protecting your members' jobs, rights, money. But I feel like between those two, concessions ultimately would have been a better option. Because at least in that case, even if they had to take pay cuts or hour cuts or benefit cuts, they're still getting some portion of the original. So, 85 years they've been making Twinkies. Actually, interesting historical note. Originally, Twinkies were made as an off-season product, much like Sweet and Low packets in the paper industry. They were just to use the shortbread cakes that were being used when strawberries were available only a few weeks a year. And originally they had banana cream. Of course, rationing happened. And say it with me now, kids, as they say in all the papers. Yes, we have no bananas. They made the vanilla cream, which is the iconic Twinkie flavor, instantly popular across the land. So, 85 years of an off-season product coming to an end because unions. So, sometimes I wonder if the workers aren't the coyote, the unions are the road runner. Because man, they sure do push them off a lot of cliffs and claim they're working for their own good. But I don't want to leave you depressed. So one very short, semi-fun thing, something to think about. If I can find the thing. Facebook. Get out while you can if you have stock. That's not an up note. No, go. It's a business thing more than anything. If you're going to blog, if you're gonna podcast, if you're gonna internet radio, make sure that you're actually using Facebook to your advantage. It's a powerful tool. 500 million people, almost as many as will be on there dead in 60 years, are on there alive right now. So, good thing to note. But, I have depressed myself completely. I'm gonna miss Twinkies in the interim. Same thing as with the auto bailouts. It's all just one big confused mess. But as it stands, we're close to our final moments So instead of continuing to talk, I'm gonna try something new here, something different. I'm gonna play you out. Gonna send you out with this one here. So please enjoy a little La Traviata. Have a good evening. We'll see you next week. Same time, same channel.